Hello there. Welcome to another episode of SUNTZU Podcast. Joining me today are Gunslinger,
Hello.
Comrade Axel,
Woof.
Rainfire,
What's up, y'all?
and George.
Hello.
By the way, fun fact, I just realized that I'm the only one here who isn't a native English speaker. That is going to be interesting. Speaking of interesting, everyone here played Low Arena quite extensively during its first NetEase test, as well as previous Arena iterations, and has some strong opinions on various aspects of said test that we would like to discuss today. Let's start with the biggest changes everyone's seen, the changes that influence the game the most and are impossible to miss. George, let's start with you. What was the single biggest change compared to when we last played a wargaming version of Arena?
I think it was the victory conditions, to be honest. I mean, obviously we have the old method of victory conditions, which were the standard base capture that's found in other wargaming games, and the annihilation victory of just eliminating all other enemy units. But obviously with this new NetEase release, annihilation victory is now completely out of the question. And so that's been replaced by a point victory system. And I think that it's very, very important to look at the victory condition changes because it's changed the focus of the game from unit kills to objective gains. And that's an important shift because that was previously the main focus of the game, to eliminate the enemy units so then that you can get the upper hand and either capture the base or hunt down the last few remaining enemies. But now we have this point victory and this base capture. It does completely change the way the game works. As I said, people do focus a lot more on the objectives, and unfortunately, in my opinion, that does cause quite a lot of blobbing compared to what we usually saw in the wargaming release, definitely. But I think that when people focus on these objectives rather than the unit kills, it does shift where things happen on the map, certainly. A lot of areas are now not played as much as they used to. On Thermopylae, for example, not many people go right over the top of the hill simply because there's not a lot to gain up there.
So I really like the point that you made about shifting the objective of the game towards, well, getting objectives rather than just straight up kill everyone, because that was like the best idea to have. And that introduces the ideas of sacrifices. I can sacrifice myself here to gain that point and lock it down, get an advantage for my team going, and to get more points. And it's not just straightforward killing good, dying yourself bad. I mean, it wasn't that straightforward back in the day either, but it does introduce a lot of interesting mechanics. And from what I've noticed myself, is that the new UI design that show you all the base captures and the capture points in between leaves a little bit to be desired, to be honest. It's quite difficult to see that a base is being captured, and it's even harder to follow the process or progress towards capture of that base. And the rules of capture are also unclear at first, and you need to figure out themselves basically throughout many battles. See how they work and just work it out yourself through observation. And those capture points are directly tied to new healing zones, and they have a huge impact on the battlefield as well. I'm sure Axel is free to talk about Puppy Factory possibilities that come together with that new feature.
Yeah, as we've said, the victory conditions have changed from annihilation being a main way to win the game, because there's now healing and even respawning of your units once they're depleted or completely destroyed. There's replenishment and respawn zones basically next to every flag. You just have to control it, and then next to your own base. The replenishment is about 10 seconds, and you only have to have one model left in a unit, and it'll heal up to full. full HP, full models, and the only thing that you can't have with that is you can't be engaged in combat and still heal. So sadly, that means we don't get puppy factories as good as we could, but you can still be sitting in there and send out your dogs if you wanted to, and then when they die, you can respawn them all. And the respawn, I believe, since we didn't die enough to find out exactly, and we can't remember, it was about 30 seconds, and you come back at full health to one of the healing zones, and you get to choose which one you want to go to. It's just, I mean, it's really changed the game completely, because now if you die, you just get to come back. You aren't done for the whole game. It kind of lessens the impact of killing a person's unit. All you do is gain some time, and it introduces some balance issues that will be talked about later, and makes some units a bit stronger than they were before. But that's all I have about that.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's what you described is quite tightly tied, to the capture points, and that by capturing a capture point, you also unlock and deny a heal zone. And you mentioned that we gained some time, we gained some ground by killing someone rather than eliminating them from the match. And I definitely agree with that. Although it often feels kind of like fighting a horde of zombies when during one push you end up killing one guy 3 times, just like between like the middle of watchtower, let's say, depending of whether there is one or not, all the way to the point, and it gets kind of weird and frustrating. And you feel like, I've killed that guy 2 times and I pretty much haven't achieved anything, right? And every time I kill him, my unit gets weaker, so I'll have to go all the way back to my healing zone and lose so much time and be out of the battle, miss on the fun. People who die, right, they get to respawn pretty closely to their point they're defending. So I think that's kind of a balance issue, and it could be addressed by either putting the healing zones a little bit further away for the defenders, and maybe some better spots for the attackers, although that's kind of excludes each other. The other way is to increase the timer of death. So you mentioned it's 30 seconds. From what I've noticed, it can be anywhere between 20 and 60 seconds. And from what we observed during the testing is that depends only, I believe, on the time of the battle itself. So how far we are in the battle, the further we are, the longer the respawn. And I think I would like to change it to depending on how many units you've lost. So if you lose 2 units and you go back and heal, that also will affect your spawn timer. But if all 3 units die, you also respawn longer, and then you die again. So 6 units, even longer, 9 units, even longer, etc., etc. Another issue is that you not only replenish your troops, but you also replenish your consumables alongside them. And that, combined with the introduction of capture points, makes stakes pretty OP, like several times more OP than they were ever before. And they were already extremely OP back in the wargaming version. So I'll talk about it a little bit later in my part. And from what I've seen is that YOLO Cavalry Charge seems to be a fairly powerful, thanks to the combination of ability to heal and respawn, and one of the new mechanics, which is unit experience. Gunslinger, what do you think about it?
Yeah, you guys are talking a lot about the YOLO shit that's been going on in the tests, and I think unit XP is the built-in kind of solution to that might not be the most effective, but yeah, once you kill units, and especially when you finish off units, you get a pretty big boost of experience. So that's supposed to be the built-in solution towards people just dying a bunch. And I think once we play higher tiers, once people get used to it and really see how impactful the bonuses you get from the chevrons are, that it'll kind of assuage that concern a little bit, but we'll have to kind of wait and see how the bonuses pan out for different units, and how people learn how to farm experience more efficiently and learn all the ins and outs of how the system actually works.
Okay, so yeah, you've mentioned, the figuring out how to gain XP in the most efficient way, and that, I think it could be harmful because then it switches the game away from I feel this is the best thing to do to I know this is exactly the best thing to do because I know how the game mechanics work. It's not like something I would do in real life if I was a commander, but it is definitely something I would do in game. Also, obviously, given that in real life you could also respawn and shit, but whatever.
Well, yeah, the fact that finishing off units gives a lot of XP helps a lot towards like actually making it.
Yes. You've also mentioned the difference that the bonus stats from XP give or provide. And from what I've noticed, it's really easy, maybe even the easiest to notice on ranged units, where if you are on the same rank as your target you're shooting, you deal, well, the normal damage, right? So let's say you're shooting a Germanicus with heavy infantry, so you only deal AP damage. But once you have one rank advantage, you start getting some higher numbers, because he doesn't get the armor bonus, but you already got the damage bonus. And I'm afraid this can lead to some real heavy snowballing, especially in a competitive setting. Because if you're talking about just random matches, it will even out more or less here and there. But in a competitive setting where people will stick together to a coherent plan, and once they get an advantage, they'll make sure they'll roll that home, as we've seen in multiple tournaments so far. Although it was a different kind of advantage, that principle is pretty much still the same. But to balance all those things out is on the CA side. But we also have a new company in play, NetEase, who publishes the game in China and provides servers. So how has been your experience with that so far, Rainfire?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about one of the biggest changes in my mind, or at least the most apparent change in this phase of Arena's life. Being published in China by NetEase, my understanding is going to be exclusively available in China, at least initially during the testing phases up into release time. One of the good things about NetEase taking over for Wargaming, or the publishing rights in China, is that they're a pretty big company. They're involved with telecom, e-commerce. They got global talent they represent. They're making like 67 billion yuan last year. So I mean, it's a pretty hefty company, and they got their fingers in a lot of pies. So they have a lot of resources available as far as the publishing and marketing of Arena. So in my mind, that's a good thing. But one of the most apparent changes people are going to notice when they go to play Arena, in this phase of the release, is that everything's in Chinese. You go to register for the game, it's on a Chinese website. The launcher you install is going to be all in Chinese. We're having to basically translate everything just to be able to play the game at this point. And the same thing with the in-game languages, like the default language pack is simplified Chinese. In-game chat is voice chat is available now, and that theoretically would also be mostly Chinese or dominantly Chinese. So that's a pretty big challenge, I think, for as far as trying to get involved with Arena at this point and going forward. The other issue I see is that, as far as my understanding, other than China in the Chinese servers, there's really not any official plans or support for worldwide publishing at this point. It's going to be almost exclusively Chinese release. So hopefully we're included for the plans for the future. CA has made statements to that effect that hopefully things are successful with NetEase and the Chinese release goes well. That they could bring Arena back to the rest of the world and implement servers in other countries and have a larger player base available worldwide. Another issue is customer support. It's almost non-existent if you're outside of China or don't speak Chinese. Because basically they're not supporting anything outside of China during the testing phases and going into release. Another issue with the Chinese servers specifically is a lot of Western players are experiencing high ping, some lag, in some instances even disconnects or lagging out so bad basically that you're kicked out of the game, and that's definitely an issue. There's also like the time differential between different regions like North America, EU. We're all on different schedule from mainland China. So as far as like matchmaking and stuff like that, I see that as a possible problem going forward. Just being able to find matches, at off hours for the Chinese servers. The last thing I did want to mention though is that NetEase already does have U.S. servers for a limited number of games, so they do have support for worldwide. Like the infrastructure is there. It wouldn't be hard for them to do that. But like I said, at this point going forward in the near future, it seems like NetEase and mainland China is going to be the focus of Arena.
Mm-hmm. Well, from what I've understood from the announcements that CA has made, is that NetEase is only getting Arena in China, and if Arena were ever to come back to the West, it would come back under Creative Assembly and Sega, and they would like manage it and stuff. But obviously that can change, or maybe I misinterpreted it. In the end, for the CEOs, it's all about the money. They don't really care. They'll make whatever decision that they think will make the most amount of money, except that those decisions were not necessarily, the best in the past, and what they thought would be a pretty good thing turned out not to be so much. Well, yeah, that's a different topic. What I wanted to talk about and expand a little bit is the netcode. You mentioned the lag, and obviously netcode is going to be essential to have a healthy netcode in such a high ping environment. And I must say, netcode is pretty solid, especially compared to a game like Conqueror's Blade that I play right now. We have dedicated European service. It is a Chinese game, so kind of a reverse situation. Chinese game published in the West rather than the other way around. So in Conqueror's Blade, even though you have European ping, so between 30 and 70 milliseconds, depending on how the servers feel or your internet connection feels, you still see people teleporting and some random bullshit happening, and like you getting hit even though on your screen you're not, and the guy who's punching you in the face is 50 meters away from you. But in case of Arena, we have a pretty solid netcode, and the only issue I've noticed, apart from obvious disconnects and high pings, is when I was trying to line up my cavalry charge. So, I right click on the ground to line up my charge. I want the charge to go in that direction, and then I hit charge ability. And then I wait for the ping to catch up. And then what happened is that the cavalry charge ability came through first, and my cavalry started charging, and only then the movement order came through and canceled the charge. So that was pretty unfortunate, and for that and many other reasons, we probably won't have the best experience playing in China if we try to play a little bit more seriously. And the other issue I'm expecting to have to deal with with all the Chinese government, doesn't have to do anything with NetEase, just the Chinese fucked up law. Or with, we will probably have to provide like IDs and phone numbers. So I don't know if our real numbers will even work because they're not Chinese. So probably have to use some random generators. And I don't know. I don't want to dive into that. But if we'll have to, I probably would to try it out. But I imagine many people from the West will drop out on that point and just say that it's not worth dealing with this bullshit. But on a little bit more positive topic, another big change that I don't think is really either positive nor negative, it's just a change, is talent points for commanders. So previously you could just max out your commander if you had enough commander XP. Now it's all about talents. So you gain talents for each commander level, which is still dependent on your commander XP. And you still can only use abilities, rather the talents of up to the tier your unit is. So you can only use up to tier 6 talents if your unit is tier 6, for example. So the issue I can see with this is I'm afraid of min-maxing. And again, same issue I had before with the XP thingy, that people just find, the most efficient way, the most efficient stats to invest in, and that will be the one build to roll them all. And it will be clearly dependent on how the math underneath the engine works, rather than, what you feel like and what you want to achieve. So I don't know, I want to kill enemies faster, so I'm gonna bring more melee attack. I want to survive for longer, so I'll bring more melee defense. But in the end, it can turn out that due to how math works and how the hit and miss chance and damage and whatever works, it will turn out that melee attack is vastly superior to melee defense. And then anyone who is unaware of that will take melee defense and will essentially screw himself over, which is not nice. So I think to combat that, we could have very distinctive upgrades to those abilities. Something like we have in World of Warships, where we have a captain and every captain has access to a set of skills in 4 different categories, and each skill is very distinct from one another. I mean, some of them are a little bit similar, but most of them are pretty distinctive. And then okay, I am in this ship, I want to do this thing with this ship, so obviously I will take this and this skill. And that's pretty much the end of discussion. And you don't really dive deep into the math underneath the game, apart from one ability, which is IFHE. And I was like, okay, do I penetrate this armor? Do I not penetrate this armor? That's a little bit of bullshit, but it's not much. It's just one ability and how it interacts with armor penetration, and that's it. So everyone can do that, and it's not like this math is hard. You just divide a number by 6 and there we go. So yeah, either that's
Numbers are hard.
Screw numbers. Either that, or have clear builds for each class and have enough points to max out every needed aspect of that build. So let's say I'm playing Caesar. I'm playing ranged units with Caesar, javelins. So there's a clearly the best build for javelins. So if you're playing javelins, you play that. If you decide you play cavalry with Caesar, artillery with Caesar, you go for the distinctive Caesar cavalry or Caesar artillery build, and so on. So I hope we can have that. That also introduces, the ability to have some fun with additional abilities. We've seen something like that in the tech tree, talent tree, ability tree, whatever. And if, for example, you sacrifice 5 area of effect range, but you gain 11 melee attack bonus. So it's a trade-off, right? And you have to spend 2 talent points of that. And if you only spend 1 on -5, then, well, you fucked up. I've seen also in Kenane's case, all the way up at tier 10, you have double number of projectiles, which is preceded by like minus X% of reload time. And that again, where math comes in, because we still remember the laser barrage at tier 10 with Caesar plus Kenane, right? And there was a huge difference between a regular barrage and a Caesar laser barrage, where Caesar only provided 5% reload speed with his VV, and that made all the difference. So here again, it will come down to a complicated math. Okay, is the double number of projectiles actually worth it? Is it actually worth it on this on all arches or not? All right, or if I play Cretan arches with this bow, do I go for double amount of projectiles? But if this bow, I go with, well, I just stay away from it and invest my 2 points somewhere else. So yeah, someone will just have to do the math, and that math isn't really available to us, like in case of Water Warships, where the penetration mechanics are pretty clear, at least in terms of HE. So yeah, that's questionable, at least for me. But one good thing that we can definitely take away from this is that it will give us more interesting things to talk about when we record our guides. That will definitely be coming this time around, soon TM, wink wink. So, well, with that teaser out of the way, does anyone have any additional thoughts that would expand on what has been already said about the biggest changes in the game? George?
Yeah, I'd just like to go back to what you said when you were finishing up what I was saying about victory conditions. And I thought you brought up a really good point about people are willing to sacrifice themselves now for objectives. And that obviously links in it as well with the replenishing and respawning mechanics of the fact that now people are willing to send in a unit, even if it's simply to slow down the enemy, because they know that even if that unit is completely destroyed, they can respawn it, and it served its purpose, even though they don't look really cool on the end screen with loads of kills where they've mopped up some archers that weren't paying attention or something. That they have actually contributed in a different way that previously in the game, if you sacrifice your unit, then that's not coming back. And you've just now put your team a big disadvantage because you've lost that unit. And that's like 100 men, if it's an infantry unit, that your team is now on the back foot.
Well, you use the term sacrifice, and I think you treat it unfairly, because sacrifice in the new game mode was good, but sacrifice in the old game mode was bad. And I disagree with that, because, sacrifices are usually good. It's not like seppuku, right? It's not suicide, it's sacrifice, which is different. So if you suicide your unit, you lose it and gain nothing. But if you sacrifice it, that means you gain something. And I think it didn't change, because the idea of sacrificing your unit to delay an enemy, or you can sacrifice one cavalry to kill 3 units of archers, right? You know your unit of cavalry will die, but you will kill 3 units of archers. Totally worth it, right? And that concept of sacrifice is still very much the same in this new game mode, but you can use, you can have a different types of sacrifice for like a capture point, right? Which just didn't exist before. But the interesting point you brought up is just behind the psychology of the players, because previously they would think, oh, sacrificing is actually not a sacrifice, it's a suicide, right? But it is not. It was still as good as it was, or it still is as good as it was, but now people will be more willing to do that because, well, they will have opportunity to respawn. Maybe they didn't want to throw away their fun and maybe wanted to play in the battle a little bit longer. Well, now everyone plays until the end, so at least that's out of the way, and it's an interesting look into, players' psychology and how that affects their choices, even though, the choices are effectively still the same. Just the infrastructure is a little bit different. Anyway, Axel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, going off of that, I think the new game mode, everything that comes off of that, it allows newer players to get into the game easier. It is easier to understand what you're supposed to do. Go capture the points, go capture the next point, go defend your own points. It's much easier than there's 2 bases and now everybody's going to try and kill each other. But you shouldn't go for the bases immediately. You should try and like fight people. So I think the new game mode will be easier to bring people into the game. But I think, and it's not perfect. We've talked about that enough here. But I think it's a good step in the right direction to bring the masses in.
I definitely agree with that. Yes, it's easier to understand, the purpose for random player, because as you mentioned previously, it was 2 bases, 2 armies, and a huge gap in between the final objective, either killing everyone or capping the base. But how do you get around to doing that, right? Maybe for most of the players that was the issue. They just had no idea on how to get to it, and they just went forward and then started doing things like Joker in Batman, which may not necessarily be the best of ideas. Gunslinger, do you have anything to add?
Nope, not really.
Okay, that was easy. Rainfire?
I'm gonna have to talk about balance anyway. So.
There was one other thing I wanted to touch on, just as far as the Chinese release and having everything at least in game in China. Like we have come up with a couple as a community, come up with a couple workarounds for some of these things, and people have been pretty much translating and laying out step-by-step instructions on how to do all this stuff in Chinese, translating everything to English, like on Discord and social media. So, I mean, there is that. And I think along those lines, it may actually bring the community outside of China closer together, as we're communicating and trying to figure out ways to, enjoy playing a game that we love, and I'm kind of with you. I'm prepared to put up with a fair amount of bullshit if I can play Arena, even with all the changes they've made, the core mechanics are still there, and I'm happy to be able to play again, bottom line.
Yeah, it definitely brings people together. I think that's pretty great. I've myself been doing video guides since that's the way I can contribute. As previously as a clan leader and a content creator, I was organizing tournaments. Well, we can still have a tournament, but definitely not a serious one with this amount of ping and random disconnects and where victory will mostly be decided by a random lag rather than actual skill. So that's out of the question. But there's also a lot fewer of us left from the West playing the game, because a lot of people are just, I've been betrayed once between Steam and Wargaming. Now I've been betrayed second time between Wargaming and China. It's like, I'm not getting into it third time. Maybe when it comes back to the West, I'll give it another shot, see if I still love the game. But for now, a lot of people are just done with that bullshit. And that's fair enough. It's hard to blame them for that, especially since, CA has earned it for their wrong decisions in the past. So now they're suffering the consequences for it. But, the people who still play and love the game, and people who would like to see it back in the West, we should just continue to supporting them as we always have been, or at least should have been doing, to make it right this time around. And there's a lot of people in community who help CA to understand what to do. The problem is that CA often either doesn't listen or listens to the wrong guys. So yeah, there's that. They also need to be aware that for every good feedback out there, there's also some bullshit feedback. And they need to recognize which is which.
One thing I'd like to say about the new game mode actually is I think it's really good that it'll probably appeal to a wider audience, and I think that's what'll really be good for the game, because if it appeals to a wide audience in China, then I mean that success is going to translate over to pretty much anywhere else it wants to, with the amount of money available and resources that companies would actually be willing to put into it. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, well, let's leave the discussion for later. We'll definitely have time slots available for that, so don't worry. Let's move on to, the new and old issues of Arena. So all these major changes that we just discussed introduced in the last test new issues as well. So new improvements that new issues that CA will now have to work towards fixing. What is the biggest new issue that you found, Gunslinger?
Issue? You mean balance issue? Like,
Could be a balance issue, could be any other issue. Or could be even a Mishu, if you want.
An issue with Mr. Zu?
Mishu.
God.
Go for it.
I mean, balance probably, just because there's so much work to be done with like how the meta shakes out. And I mean, like I said earlier, how people learn to farm XP, how people learn to not feed XP, how people, I mean, all those things can change. They might even not even be optimal, but whatever people start actually doing is what matters, and that's how the game has to be designed around. And I mean, right now it looks like just being mobile and having and being a bit tanky or able to contest points is probably the strongest attributes in any unit, just because I mean it's about map control, and like we said earlier, the focus of your victory conditions in every game has changed a lot more. It's not just secure an early man lead and exploit that like it was before, or just like deathball v deathball in competitive modes, especially with like AoE buffs, whatever. But now it's a lot more mobile, it's a lot more consistent. So you kind of gotta CA, and more importantly, has to see how that shakes out and what needs to be touched on. And yeah, like if like I said earlier, probably cavalry and elephants are probably like your best bet, or like at least like tanky cavalry, just so you can contest points and actually secure points, which therefore wins the game. So it's interesting, but we'll have to see how it shakes out, especially in higher tiers where units are pretty different. And yeah.
So you've mentioned goodness, I lost my train of thought. So you didn't really provide any like hard examples on which units you think are best, just provided the attributes. But in my experience, yeah, those units are a lot stronger and some units are a lot weaker. For example, in my experience, obviously, since I'm a range main, maybe was a range main due to the reasons I'm about to lay out. So yeah, ranged units.
Like is the fact that damage is your source isn't your source of XP, and it's more unit kills. That also kind of has a pretty good effect on what units and what playstyles you want to be having to actually like be killing units. Things like artillery, things that soften people up, just aren't really that good. Even like a full cav charge won't get you any XP because you're not killing models sometimes.
Oh yes, down to the math. Thank you very much, Gunslinger, for that.
You wanted me to do this.
I wanted you to do exactly the opposite, rather. But okay. So, as I was saying, or rather, you reminded me of what I wanted to say. You mentioned, the dev blobs of AoE buffs. That also comes down to the math, right? Because people have figured out, let's just stack all the buffs and let's just have, all the effects, all the Vichis, all the rebellions, all the vengeances, all the proscriptions, all that shit stacked one on top of another, and just move as one big dev blob. And if the enemy doesn't have the same buffs to match us, just our stats alone will overwhelm them. Doesn't matter if we are surrounded, doesn't matter if we are outnumbered, outmaneuvered, or whatever. Like, our dev blob of buffs and debuffs will wreck everything, right? So unless you manage to just circumvent the slow blob and cap their base, you're pretty much done for with that strategy. And the introduction of capture points all around the map helps that a little bit, because teams will have to divide, send some people on the right flank, some people on the left flank, some people to the middle. Otherwise, they're just gonna lose on points eventually, right? And the killing of that dev blob won't be as effective because, well, you can just respawn, right? And then match them in the base, even if they get to it. And you can outmaneuver them all in all sorts of ways. So yes, maneuverability definitely much better. Therefore, cavalry definitely much better, and a lot more people will be picking cavalry. That's one of the reasons why the ranged units are weaker. A ranged unit is also weaker because they cannot contest points. There's no decaps, which that's how they were useful in terms of holding bases in the past. No decaps. They cannot contest caps on their own. If they get into a cap and start capping it or, contesting it, if there's no melee unit to hold an enemy unit, melee unit incoming, they have to run away, right? And if that's cavalry, they're dead without help. So yeah, ranged units in all sorts of ways become weaker, and they haven't really become stronger in any other sense. Not really in terms of XP gain from what I've seen either. I haven't seen my archers really going, crazy on amount of XP they were gaining compared to anyone else. So
I mean, one theoretical thing with range that I've been hearing a lot is if you would probably group up with them more and kind of use them as an AD carry and just feed them experience. But like
yes,
I said, there's lots of stuff.
yes, as I was saying, I wish that could happen. But that's the topic that George wanted to talk about, which is kind of the death of teamwork and lack of front lines. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I definitely think that the lack of a coherent front line is really arisen from this NetEase release. And I know, Mistry, you were a big advocate of bringing up this point because it does cause the game to suffer, and especially with the other things that even I spoke about, the victory conditions, it really just compounds these issues because you've got a lot more of this blobbing around points, or not even blobbing, but just grouping together, but without meaningfully grouping together, without thinking, oh, well, yeah, I'll follow this unit, more like hoarding around the base or nearby the base or any kind of objective. And so this, combined with, as you were saying, the more people picking up cavalry, and also I think a lot less people have been playing not only archers, as you said, that archers are weaker or just other units have got stronger, but infantry that's being used for its tanking ability, or infantry that prolongs engagement compared to a unit that's more damage focused, like we said about the cavalry. Those sort of units are becoming less prevalent and less effective because now with the respawn mechanics and such, you want to output as much damage as you can. If you're trying to push an objective, you want to just wipe them off it so you can get onto that capture point, and so you can set yourself up so that when they do respawn or when they send reinforcements, you're ready for them. And so I think people like for someone like Leonidas, for example, people taking Leonidas spears, are they very useful at this point? They have this fight in the shade ability, but obviously that defends them against ranged fire. But does he have anything that makes people want to play him? There's lots of things that he can do, but there's lots of other commanders and other classes that you can take that do it better, or simply perform a task that is more useful in the current state of the game. And I think that we'll definitely see that sort of the way the game's played, the composition of teams change a lot. I know that elephants, even though they were very difficult to, well, not very difficult to get, but obviously they're the top tier of unlockable units in the test because it only went up to tier 6. And I noticed that on the last 2 days, the elephants, they were very prevalent and they were very, very strong, simply because a lot of the ways that people have changed their units, a lot more cavalry, a lot more, not just less infantry. It meant that the front line just didn't exist. And units like cavalry and elephants can just slip through the gaps and they can just wreak havoc. And I think that's why definitely archers are becoming less useful, because there's nothing to protect them. And there's no reason to protect them because it just compounds the problem. If I'm playing archers and I'm just getting rushed by some cavalry, maybe I should not play archers. Maybe I should play some cavalry as well. And I just think it feeds the problem. And it's a slippery slope, because getting to a point where one unit or one class is like the meta, and as you said, stacking the buffs. If we start moving away from this kind of pre-planned, like you said, with the barrage, with the vidi, if we're moving away from this kind of organized to this, just it can descend in chaos. I've seen it a few times, especially on Salernum, like the city maps. Just constantly you have cavalry that just goes through open spaces because there just isn't any kind of infantry or frontline units to defend it.
Well, you need to defend the points, which is where the cavalry would like to get to, usually now. But yeah, you've mentioned a lot of good points. As for Leonidas, for example, I think he still has his place, because defensive tanky units definitely are very, very useful. Maybe, the protection from ranged is not as needed anymore, for several reasons. But yeah, just being able to stand on the top of a point, even if you're alone, surrounded, which is Leonidas' specialty, right? He doesn't care if he's surrounded, he doesn't care if he's outnumbered, or just hold the line and shield bash everyone to death until he dies himself. And delaying an enemy advance, making that sacrifice we were talking about earlier, is definitely still very valuable. So even though he's slow, he still definitely is very useful. And as far as for teamwork and the depth of it, yeah, we've definitely seen a decrease of it, because you can start organized. You have your party, you all spawn on one side of the map, and you go into one flank together, and that starts in an organized manner. But then one guy dies, the other guy has to retreat to heal up because he lost most of his units. The third guy is still there and fighting, the fourth guy is ranged units, therefore he didn't take any damage, right? But he will sooner or later be left out alone in there. And then the entire party that started, coherent, right, next to each other, after a few first engagements, may end up all over the place, even all over the entire map. Because, oh shit, they're attacking our base, I need to go back to our base. Well, I'm still tied in combat here at the enemy base, and you cannot even help each other anymore because they are so far away, right? And then you'll come to base, but the other guy is already dead, and then he'll respawn somewhere else, and yeah, it all becomes chaos. And it'll introduce the new type of skill, or make the new type of other type of skill more significant, which is the individual decision making, being quick to react to things, all that kinds of stuff, while communication and teamwork will probably decrease, because previously you could easily defeat like a group of better players if you coordinated well with each other. But now that coordination can be there at the beginning, then it will be gone, for all those reasons I mentioned, and probably many other. But I will still at least try my very best to make teamwork work. Like, if not me, then whom, right? I have a clan behind me of faithful players, right, who stand by my side and not run away from me because they feel like it. So yeah, I will keep trying to form parties that will still try to prove that teamwork can win games, like proper teamwork, sticking together, etc., etc. Or we will be proven wrong and die trying together with teamwork. So yeah, also back to archers a little bit, is that what you said about outputting a lot of damage quickly. Archers are mostly about little damage over time, just dealing damage, not killing, as for example artillery, because when artillery hits a unit, it kills every single model it touches pretty much in every situation, maybe apart from few exceptions, right? And then that sends that unit to heal up, so either stay and be much weaker, or go back and heal up and waste time. Archers and other ranged units don't really have that. that ability like artillery. That's why I think artillery still is kind of OP. Archers, javelin slingers, not so much anymore. But yeah, we've been talking for 50 minutes by now, and that has been a lot of feedback we've given to CA, who are hopefully listening. So yeah, there's that. But due to the particular circumstances the game is right now and our new Chinese overlords, right? Our feedback is definitely much more difficult to be heard than it was before, due to this particular infrastructure that we're dealing with right now. Rainfire, would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it already in my last topic, but I did want to mention, if you're playing outside of mainland China, customer support or feedback or forums, basically all of that stuff from Steam or Wargaming has been shut down. I mean, obviously there's still social media. There's still people in little pockets that are still talking about the game. Especially the Discord's been active, and there are other resources out there. Maybe we don't have a direct line to the publisher or to the developer anymore, because I mean, it seems like CA is not really offering any support outside of mainland China. At least for the time being. But like I said before, there are get active in social media. Get active on Discord. Join a clan. There are a lot of resources available. And a lot of people that do have information. I mean, we've built up kind of this wealth of information and support over the last 5-6 years of this game being in various phases of release and testing with different publishers. And honestly, I'm just thankful it's still alive in whatever form. But there are resources available. There are people from CA, at least I know, monitoring certain Discord, and it's not like they're not listening to us anymore. I just want to put that out there. And there are resources available if you love Arena and you're willing to put up with a little bit of bullshit. You can still play, and hopefully, they're going to expand their customer support to encompass other regions, hopefully, and maybe do some English translations and whatnot. But yeah, for right now, we're going to have to rely on each other and rely on the community and the resources we have available to ourselves. We're kind of on our own. So that's that.
Yeah, so you've mentioned the bullshit that we'll have to go through if you want to provide our feedback to certain developers. And I definitely agree, that's quite a lot of bullshit. Luckily, there are other ways, wink wink. But yeah, apart from difficulty in providing feedback, there's also difficulty in getting help. Okay, the customer support is only in Chinese. So if you've got a problem, something's not working for you, unless someone has already been through there that and he found a solution to it, and you manage to talk to the person, you're in a very tough spot. And a lot of people on my stream have been coming to me and asking for that problem, and I couldn't help them. How has that been for you, Comrade Axel, as I have graciously stolen maybe one of your arguments, as did Rainfire previously?
Yeah. As you guys have discussed currently, you basically can't get any customer support from NetEase or CA because they don't really do the customer support side. But honestly, the support from Wargaming wasn't fantastic either, if we're being completely honest, but at least it was in English. Basically the only way to do it is either just wait for the game to come to the West and be in English, or there's plenty of customer support in quotation marks being provided by the community, like we've discussed. Some nice SUNTZU guides out there, and pictures that have been translated. But that's basically the only way to get any help is through the community. So go talk to people, get in Discord, ask around.
Shameless plug. Join SUNTZU Discord, ask around, and we will try to help you as much as possible. As we said before, committee has to get together in this time of need. So if you need help, come to our Discord. We'll help you as much as we can. But as I've mentioned, if no one has encountered an issue like yours, right, and we haven't found a solution to it, sometimes helping will just be not possible, despite our best intentions. Speaking of support in the West, the new issue-ish, or maybe we can call it Mishu, is the lack of support for Western content creators, which previously was provided by Wargaming/Creative Assembly for their content creator program. But actually, before that content creator program was there, a SUNTZU streaming community was already there and providing that support for content creators before Wargaming/CA did anything. So yeah, SUNTZU streaming community has been running for like a few months before Wargaming has finally started their own community contributor program for Total War Arena creators. And now that that is gone, CA isn't obviously doing anything officially. Well, for me, the only option is to revive that SUNTZU streaming community and start providing support for any willing content creators, any content creators that are willing to join it. To basically support each other, just like we were prior to the Wargaming version of it. And even through the Wargaming version, we were still using it. So, for example, a podcast just like this, right? If you would like to participate in a podcast like this in the future, well, joining SUNTZU streaming community is one way to join such a discussion, and you can have your voice heard better in spicy HD quality, right? ASMR. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not able to provide that today. Sadly, my voice is like 6 out of 10 at best. But we do with what we have, right? We don't have any Chinese or CA Western support. We support each other the best we can. So yeah, I've been I started reviving the SUNTZU streaming community, but yeah, it's still a work in progress. But thankfully to coronavirus, now we have a little bit more free time than we used to, right? So yeah, I'll have more time to sit down to it and do it properly. Anyway, those have been the new issues. Let's talk about some of the older ones that, despite all the changes to game modes and whatnot, are still persistent and still there, and CA haven't done anything with them. Let's give them a little bit of our feedback. Even more. It's not a little bit, that's a lot, and I'm proud of it. Axel, what kind of feedback can you provide?
Oh, I can provide so much on this pathfinding issue. It has been changed, basically. That's the gist. It's the same as in the Wargaming. It's not great. The unit I played pretty much exclusively was the dogs. Big shocker. And they still charge into each other, hurt themselves on each other, can't find their way around anywhere. Basically the same problems. Nothing's been changed. Maybe it will never be changed. Who knows? But there's hope for the future.
Yeah, there's always hope. Maybe the issue you're describing is not pathfinding purely on its own. Maybe, the AI that, leads the dogs once they are released, right? Because you basically tell them go in that direction or go stay there and then attack someone if you see someone close within your aggression range or whatever. So yeah, that's like the unit AI that controls the dogs after they have been released. But from pathfinding, yeah, as you mentioned, it hasn't been changed. The old grudge with pathfinding was, like units couldn't even fucking turn around the corner because they just started spinning around. And then CA has released open beta before fixing that, and a lot of people have run to that issue and dropped the game entirely. So that's one of the very bad CA decisions that they have made in the past. Because, we have to release open beta now because games come, we have to hype up. The game isn't fucking ready, okay? So hopefully they won't make that mistake around this time around for the third time. But let's get back to pathfinding. Pathfinding is, better than it was with, the spinning issue. Has been since fixed, or improved rather, because it's far from fixed. There's still issues like, close to the ledges, where units would go onto the ledges even though you didn't want them to. You just, clicked on the ground, not on the ledge. And we're just close enough to, catch on the ledge, and then units will go onto the ledge, and like an attack order won't cancel the movement because that's how ledges work. Or when you want to line up your cavalry charge or line up your phalanx movement, you want to avoid some melee engagement with archers. It affects every single unit in the game a little bit in a different way, but every single unit type suffers from it, maybe apart from heavy artillery and light artillery. Well, apart from when they also need to run away. So there's that. So yes, I retract my statement. Everyone suffers. So yeah, for example, when there's a blob fighting, I had that in my very first battle, I think, of the Chinese test, when I was in arches, close to a ledge, wanted to pathfind around the ledge. That went well that time around. But yeah, I've, was being surrounded and I had to run away through a blob, right? So one tiny mistake and you end up clicking on an enemy unit and you would shoot it instead of run towards it. Same with cavalry charges. If you want to line up a charge that is around a corner, you cannot click on the unit, because if you click on the unit, your unit will try to start pathing like towards the middle of it and like go around the corner in a sophisticated way, let's say it, instead of charging in the direction you actually want. So there are a lot of instances that I could spend fucking 10 minutes describing them, but let's not do that. The bottom line is like a solution to it. Let's provide a solution, as every good feedback should. A solution to this I would implement is like a non-collision mode for pathfinding, let's say. So if you hold down Control, for example, whatever other key on your keyboard, so holding Control and then you right click, right, then that enters a non-collision mode. For example, you can have stakes or caltrops laying on the ground, and you just want to go into that direction, or you're running around and suddenly accidentally click on caltrops and your unit stops, it starts shooting it or trying to attack it if you're melee. But well, that's not what you wanted, right? I mean, that's kind of your fault. You shouldn't have clicked accidentally on the caltrops, but that still illustrates the point. So just hold out Control, and when you're holding down Control and right clicking, your unit will just go to the direction, to that location where you're clicking, instead of trying to attack or trying to get on a ledge or whatever that may be where you're clicking. Well, okay, that was a round and a half about pathfinding, but it's about time something is done with that. I'm pretty sure Pike will go crazy in the comments if he listens to it. Let's talk about some next issues. George, what do you have for us?
Well, I think an issue that is an old issue, but it's changed slightly, is like ninja capping. And obviously, previously in the game, under the Wargaming release with the just straight up base capture system, people would find gaps in lines, and even if they couldn't capture the base fully, they would at least drag back some of the team, and that would take up a lot of time, and obviously could give your team an advantage depending on how you go about it. And I think that the new ninja capping is, I can't decide whether it's more of an issue or less of an issue than the old ninja capping, because you see a lot at the beginning of the game, and I'll hold my hands up, I do this myself, play cavalry and you rush straight towards one of the points, and after the enemy is engaged with your teammates, you run around onto the cap point, and if you can manage to take that capture point without them managing to get back, and obviously you can use one of your units to interrupt them, to just catch units that are trying to come back and stop you. But if you do manage to pull that off, you get rid of their you get rid of their replenishment point. You gain points. They are no longer gaining points from that, and it's locked for 1.5 minutes. And that means that even if your entire team on that side collapses, they can't capture the next point because it's locked out, and they have to wait 1.5 minutes before they can even start capturing the place that you have captured. And so it certainly adds a different style of gameplay. And I think that actually it does help, in my opinion, at least to a slight extent, the lack of the coherent front lines argument, because having to have units that are defending your capture points, but also pushing onto an enemy capture point and trying to prevent units getting through, I think that could possibly aid to front lines really coming back into the game. Not to the extent that they were before, but I definitely see that it could aid that issue, and I think we'd have to see it with more players once open beta gets testing on. Once that comes out and once there's a lot more people playing the game, I think that we'll be able to get a better look at how that works. But certainly, I think it will influence how people play the game.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, that it could aid bring back the coherency of front lines and armies altogether. But the way you describe it, some units pushing, some units staying back to defend. Oh, that kind of sounds like there's a big gap in between of those units, and then cavalry trying to go around and cap it. Maybe they won't cap, but that will open an opening for them. Since there's 1, 2, 3 units on top of a capture point defending it, so that's cavalry cannot sneak capture it in seconds. That is 1 to 3 units less, protecting the archers in the front line, maybe, right? So yeah, I see what you were going for, and I do agree, like in a theoretical
I think it greatly
sense,
depends on the map.
It depends on your definition of coherency. And also, yes, maps like Salernum, like Thermopylae, where you have, those routes around the entire main battlefield area, let's call it, where at the end of that route you can get straight onto the point, surprise the enemy entirely because they just didn't expect you to be there. But yeah, I think we can see the change in meta where people will just leave one spear unit, for example, behind and just plant it on top of a point, just like they were doing with bases in Wargaming version. I was like, I've been ninja capped by cavalry so many times. Not anymore. I'm taking spears and I'm putting my unit onto a point and screw any cavalry player that tries to do it. And it would screw that cavalry player over, yes, definitely. And then maybe that in turn makes the cavalry player kind of useless, but then cavalry can just be anywhere in half a minute. So there's also that, but at least it's not capturing a point. So yeah, that's like a lot of back and forth. It's not only about the unit balance, but also how people use the units within the game. Meta changes not only based on the unit statistics and stuff like that, but also on player behavior and experiences as we go further and further into the game, as people gain more experience. But speaking of experience, and something that a lot of experienced players remember and have been recently lacking, Gunslinger wanted to talk about something special.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about cosmetics, and basically their use could be as monetization. Basically, Wargaming Arena, they just started getting cosmetics. They're basically just reskins of units, of commanders, and of units, some a little bit, but mostly for commanders. I think it just comes down to if they want to bite the bullet on creating more fantasy-like skins, because I mean, there's only so much you can do to stay historically accurate, and then it really just comes down to that. If they come out with more fantastical skins, or they can do a lot more with it, then I think it'll be really popular. But otherwise, I think it's kind of dead in the water, at least how it is right now. And we kind of just got to see what they want to do with it, and how serious they are. How serious they are about making that an actual way to monetize the game.
Mm-hmm. I can bring up, the two other games I play quite often, after Arena was gone, sad times. So yeah, World of Warships and Conqueror's Blade, how they do it. Conqueror's Blade pretty much purely monetizes itself through skins, and I see a lot of people running around with skins. A lot more than I would expect, actually. Obviously there's premium account and stuff like that, but I think like most of the revenue actually comes through skins, because they have pretty cool ideas on skins, which means that if you have a good idea, you can definitely sell it, and people will buy that stuff. The issue with Arena is that, unlike in Conqueror's Blade, you're pretty far away with your camera from, the action. So soldiers are just tiny pixels on your map, on your screen, rather than, big in front of your face models. They definitely added that, post-battle scene, as they were calling it, with MVP in the front and stuff like that, so that people can show off the skins better. So yeah, they will definitely have to do something in the cosmetics for units department. Well, definitely not forcing the camera closer to the ground. We've been there, it's purely cancer, and people have been giving that feedback, including me, ever since early Steam version. And then like 1 year into Wargaming version, they have finally listened. Took you some time, CA. Still holding a grudge for that, but let's hope that you will act faster on player feedback since now. And yeah, one thing that I personally want to see, and I know a lot of other fellow weeps out there would also like to see, some, good anime skins. And then again, Wargaming with World of Warships comes with solution. If people don't like, a historical anime girls running around and swinging swords, Wargaming has just one single button called No Anime, and there we go. I mean, it's called like disable ahistorical thingies or whatever, but you catch my point. So yeah, fucking go crazy. Give me an Iskandar, Seifuku Iskandaru skin for my Alexander the Great, and Winged Hussars skin, even though Winged Hussars aren't really in anime, but yeah, I want Winged Hussars skin for my Cataphracts, goddammit. It will look super cool, and also, their wings will be visible from space, skewer and fire. Now, since you've already spoke up, you can talk about vision.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly touch on it. It's one of those bugs that's been around, almost as long as the pathfinding, or it's almost annoying as the pathfinding, I should say. It's just like certain terrain features, or even sometimes at a certain angle, like your unit's at a certain angle, but there's nothing in the way, or you'll be like on the edge of a cliff, but there's like a little tuft of grass. Then all of a sudden you can't see anything directly in front of you, or you'll come around a corner at a weird angle and like lose vision directly ahead. It even affects occasionally certain abilities that use vision, to activate the ability, will have certain issues just because of, like the bad vision because of terrain features and stuff like that. I mean, it has been improved over the years, but it's still one of those things that lingers, and it's just like not quite right, and then like under certain conditions it can still be pretty aggravating, but yeah, that's all I really had to say about that.
Yeah, something that I have personally experienced with how the vision works and how it fucks over the players, for lack of better word. I'm sorry, I'm not a native speaker with a lot of vocabulary. I have to sometimes reserve to those words. Anyway, since I'm playing Kanane main, Even when I'm playing cavalry, I'm still playing Kanana, Kappa Pride. When you try to apply hand to a unit that is just on the edge of your vision, because, well, that's like the best scenario, because the unit is just about to leave your vision, so you click hand on them and prolong the amount of time that you will see the unit, even if it goes outside of your vision. Exactly what hand is designed for. But the problem is that in most of those cases, or very often, it happens that you see the unit on your screen because it's still like at the edge of your vision, but it just managed to escape, like the vision range you also see on the map as an indicator of lighter highlighted ground. But you still see the unit for like a brief split second. But the game engine like already interprets that unit as invisible, but you still see it on the screen, and that creates a dissonance of, I see that unit, I clicked hand on it, I managed to do it in time, like, I've watched through my footage to make sure that I definitely clicked on time, and I definitely did watch it fucking frame by frame, and I know what I'm talking about. And it, now you can just wave, oh, it's, because you're playing on 200 ping. No, even when I was playing 30 ping, I still had that issue. So that's at least how I think that works. I obviously have no solid evidence on that because I'm not a developer. I don't have access to their engine and how every little thing works. But from multitude of battles that I've played across Wargaming, Steam, and now NetEase versions, that's the best explanation I can give to that. So yeah, fakes how visions, how units showing up on your screen and disappearing from your vision and actual vision range works. That definitely has to be fixed. Be more consistent. Maybe add like 1 second padding of like, okay, the unit left your vision, but you will still see it for 1 second, and then you have time to click your hand or whatever, or just cut it that short. If it's out, you cannot apply hand, just make it invisible. One way or the other, just fix it. The second thing, I mean, right, what you said, Rainfire, right, about units being on ledges and you can't see shit because of like a little bump in the road or whatever. So let's try to find a solution to it. Right? I just said, as every good feedback, try to provide a solution instead of just complaining. Maybe sometimes we don't know the solution, we just know the problem, and you're the developers, figure it out. We're just saying it's wrong. But here I think the solution could be just maybe not necessarily changing how the entire vision system works, because that's a lot of like groundwork in the engine, I imagine. So maybe try to just increase vision of every single unit by, I don't know, 10% or whatever. Maybe that will fix it. I don't know, but that's also what I've noticed. Like there's a unit with big vision, good vision range, or for example, which unit was, which commander? They changed abilities so much. Anyway, there was a scout ability that was on Arminius. Then it was on Boudica, and it changed to ambush, right? Yeah, I think it's on Boudica, it's called ambush now. So anyway, there's an ability that increases your view range, right? Click it and suddenly you have plus 50%. And that seems to fix, the problem of, oh, there's a little bump in front of me. Click at the ability and suddenly you can see through it. So this sort of solution, even though it's, half-assed solution, at least it works. So maybe try applying it until you find the real fix and play around with your engine. But yeah, you can literally patch that issue with, just bumping the vision up on every single unit or something. So yeah, that's a little bit of a rant, but let's move on to another rant, and that will be my rant about patch 3.1, quite briefly. Obviously that patch was aimed, I think at least I think it was 3.1, but whatever. That patch was aimed at reducing the saltiness of community around friendly fire, because people were complaining, oh, stop doing friendly fire to me, I'm useful and you're killing me. No, you're not useful. I'm killing you and killing 5 times more the enemies. So you're useful holding them back, I'm useful killing them. Everyone's useful, everyone should be happy, but you keep crying because, oh, you got a little bit of damage, So yeah, that's the kind of feedback that you listen to the community because they keep complaining, and it's understandable, to be honest, because if so many people are complaining and whining about a certain aspect of the game, you have to change it or these people will quit. You can tell them you don't understand, friendly fire is actually good. I mean, as long as it's not being done by idiots who deal bad friendly fire, but people were complaining a lot about good friendly fire, like, I deal 5 times more damage to the enemy and I help pushing the line faster, right? Which would be even more important in this new game mode. But, well, what they did is they increased accuracy on every single ranged unit. So it was previously like 248 dispersion for javelins, archers, and slingers. And now I think they changed everything to 1. So every single ranged unit is like super accurate now. Which I even shown in one of my videos during the new NetEase release. There was a small unit, like, I don't know, 20 soldiers left, almost dead. And it was sandwiched between 2 full units of allied infantry. And I was still able to walk up to that unit with my javelins, shoot it, and deal close to no damage to my allies while obliterating the unit inside. Which, in the previous setting would just result in a shit ton of friendly fire and it would be a bad idea. So on one side it's also good because it gives, ranged units more often something to do. Because since they have increased accuracy, they don't have to worry about friendly fire so much, therefore they're not useless in so many situations. But that hits also the other way, because, in order to combat the increased damage that would come from higher accuracy, they buffed the shit out of units' missile block, and they nerfed missile damage. So now we have ridiculous situations like hitting fucking barbarians in the back and dealing only AP damage with archers or slingers. Like, this is the least armored unit in the game. You're on the same tier, maybe they're even 1 tier lower, and you have like maxed out damage in your build, and you still only deal AP damage to, the lightest armored unit. That's just plain wrong. And then those naked barbarians run at you and block 60-80% of your missiles as well. So while, I maybe like the idea behind that patch, in theory, the execution of it and the numbers, the numbers and the math that they actually applied, well, they kind of missed the mark with them. But that's at least good, because that means just tweak the damage numbers, tweak the missile block, tweak the armor values on certain units, and you will achieve, better balance while still having all the benefits of that actual patch. So it's not like this patch was entirely horrible. It had some good ideas. It was just, misexecuted. Other important thing, stakes. They've become absolutely broken. I mean, they already were broken. Then patch 3.1 came, made them insanely more broken. And now the NetEase game mode comes with capture points, and that makes stakes even more broken. Because stakes, we mentioned ninja capping, right? And how putting 1 spear unit can help it, right? But then that spear unit is far away. Well, just put on stakes in there. You can move your unit away from there. Stakes take like what? 20 seconds to set up max if you don't have any bonuses. If you have the Sula can cut it down to 2 seconds, I believe, with his whip ability. So play Sula light artillery, Sula infantry, just bring stakes. Like, pretty much every unit that has access to stakes should bring stakes because they're so broken. Just put them around the points, prevent any single ninja capture. And now we have healing zones where you just walk up. Oh, I put already my 6 stakes around 1 point. I'm just gonna go and heal and get my new sets of stakes, and I'll put them somewhere on the map again. And you can literally like go into Salernum, and every single street after 5 minutes can be staked up. That's just straight up ridiculous. And it wouldn't be ridiculous if stakes dealt friendly fire, right? Because, okay, you're cacking the enemy team, but you're also cacking yourself. Fair enough trade. But they don't deal friendly fire, and they deal a ridiculous amount of damage. They take very long to destroy, and just pretty much every single thing about stakes is broken, and every single change that is about stakes that they introduce makes stakes even stronger and stronger and stronger, and me just more and more hopeless in that regard. But maybe CA will finally punch themselves in the head and realize what's going on and, bring stakes to something normal. I don't know. So yeah. Also, let's talk about saltiness, since I'm clearly salty. How the friendly fire causes saltiness in unjustified saltiness within community. Now you have respawns, right? So maybe that will help, and they'll think about reintroducing friendly fire. It's like, oh shit, I just ran through friendly stakes. Well, at least they were close to our point, so it's also close to our respawn point. So I guess I'll just go and heal, right? Instead of, oh shit, I ran to friendly stakes. Oh, who the fuck put it here and blah 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 blah. So yes, maybe the psychology of players will change now for a lot better with the introduction of respawns, because all that random bullshit that ends up killing you, now you can just respawn instead of being salty about it. You still can be salty because, I have to waste time going to respawn, but it's not as bad, nearly as bad. So that has been 2.5 runs, not even 1 run and a half, 2.5. Closing thoughts. Anyone? Let's start with Gunslinger.
Yeah, I think in general we just need to kind of not set our judgments in stone too early. There's still a lot to figure out with what they're gonna do. I mean, they confirmed a new faction is coming out, at least one, and you really need to kind of see what goes on and play higher tiers. We still need to see how that pans out. Let's not make too harsh of judgments and kind of give it the chance it deserves.
I mean, okay, yeah, you've been saying, it's early enough, but you can also, you have also to remember that this is, the third attempt, and Arena has been around since 2015. So it's not that early. And, we've played the game, and the game is mostly ready, right? It's entered a new mode.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're having fun with the formula, exploring their new options. They're no longer, just sitting down and fixing every single bug and improving balance. Now they're finally at a point where they can, start doing other things. Although, as I've mentioned, and other people as well, the game still has a lot of underlying issues, not only balance-wise, but, just how engine works, and that still has a lot of rough edges that need polishing. So yeah, it's about time CA starts getting things right. But at least the positive to take away from this is that, they haven't been sitting on their asses throughout that year that the arena was gone, and they're actually working on it. And we've got an announcement of another test.
No, I'm just agreeing with you here.
Good. Okay. Because I thought I might have disappeared because I still may have some random connectivity issues as I had in the previous podcast. Going back on track. What was I saying? Anyway, that's quite positive. Right? That they've been doing stuff and actually working, and the next announcement promises, a lot of more changes. A new faction is coming. I don't know, maybe new maps or whatever. But a lot of is listed in there. Something that they couldn't possibly, done in a month. That means that it's already there and just waits to be released. And they're just not flooding us with new content, because that was obviously have overwhelmed us, right? We're only talking about what's already in the game, not what's coming, although we'll get to that. And we've already been talking for quite some time. So yeah, imagine if they released all of that on us at once. So this test has definitely been good. Just test the new game mode, have all the units you're already familiar with, all the system orders, that you're familiar with, and just have that one new thing, the game mode, and, stuff that comes with it. And test the shit out of that. Give us our feedback. Then we'll move to another thing, and then give us feedback about that, while we're still trying to fix, hopefully, the old stuff that we've been talking about. Axel?
I agree.
Good. Thank you. Do you have any closing thoughts on whatever has been said in this fragment of the podcast? The issue thing, the issue part.
I think we just need to keep in mind we had 4 days to test stuff. We need to keep looking forward. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely would like to stay positive, and I am staying positive. George?
Yeah, I really just think like you said, 4 days. It's not really long enough to realize exactly how everything's going to pan out and how people are going to play the game with some form of new meta or anything like that. And I think these new issues, they might even be fixed when we go into like open beta and full release. So I think that we'll give them a chance. Give them a chance to now look at these issues that we think they're issues that have arisen, and see how they respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the new changes, we can definitely give them time for that. We have, as you said, only 4 days to test it, and it's very new, and they also haven't had an occasion to get feedback from the player base. Fair enough, but in my opinion, the old issues, it's about damn time they have been addressed. And Rainfire, other than you've been agreeing with what I was saying, do you have anything else to add?
I did want to point out one minor thing about the vision bug. There is one fairly simple and like straightforward solution, and that is teamwork. Especially, if you're
Get the watchtower
a cab
beach, right?
unit. Yeah. Go grab that watchtower. Give your friendly units vision. You see a friendly unit getting cut off on its own. Obviously, he's gonna have issues with vision, especially if you're in bad terrain. Run over there and help him out. Send a unit. All you need is a very small unit to have vision. You don't need a full unit. So teamwork is a simple solution for just more of an annoying thing than really any type of game breaking bug.
Well, I sure hope that the teamwork isn't that, so we can have that solution. But yeah, maybe devs will resolve to my solution of just increasing the view range of units. And one thing that I forgot to say that I would like to add now in regards to the capture speed and ninja caps, or just ninja caps, and I want to talk about the cap speed. That's quite bizarre because from what I've noticed, again, I don't have hard data on it. I haven't actually spent time reviewing my footage with a stopper in hand. But from what I've noticed, the capture speed is not dependent on the amount of soldiers inside a capture zone as it was previously on Steam and Wargaming, where cavalry would cap much slower than a full unit of infantry because it was about how many models, how many soldiers you have inside a unit. Now it is about just the amount of units. So whether it is 3 units of cavalry, 3 units of archers, or 3 units of infantry, they will all cap at the same speed. At least from what I've observed. I may be wrong, but it's kind of weird that they already came up with this solution since the beginning, pretty much. I don't know if it was since the very, very beginning, but the fact that I cannot even remember when that possibly could have been introduced, that means that must have been pretty long time ago, if it wasn't there since the beginning, right? So yeah, that is one possible solution to combat the ninja caps, right? Cavalry goes around, no one is defending the point, but it will take cavalry 2 times as much time as it would take an infantry unit that snuck around. But then maybe people will switch from ninja capping with cavalry to ninja capping with folksmen. We've seen Russians with SH rushing through the snow with autonomous light. Just click on the ledge, abuse the bug, don't suffer any penalties. And yeah, please ban those people, CA, for abusing bugs and not having any remorse about it. It's like, oh, I'm abusing the bug, so you guys provide the feedback about it, and so I can be stopped. Yeah, sure. So that has been maybe a little bit of a negative segment, but yeah, as with everything, I want to keep a light in the tunnel at least, and provide a solution to our problem, or see any other positive in it. Let's talk about the positive things now to lighten up the mood and yeah, get some more positivity going. What was improved in your opinion, Rainfire, compared between Wargaming and NetEase release, obviously?
The one thing I did notice was the daily system. I don't remember ever seeing that before. I'm pretty sure it's a new feature. I mean, it may have been tested in some other phase that I forgot about or not aware of, but that's a cool new thing that they've thrown in there. You get little bonuses for doing like daily missions, things like dealing damage with certain tier units, or using a certain commander, or earning a certain amount of XP, and you get little rewards like bonuses, additional XP, currency, stuff like that. So I think that's a nice little feature and something else to help reduce the grind. I like it. I mean, how can you say no to free XP, right?
Yeah, sure, I definitely agree with that. Although, as with everything, it can definitely be improved. From what I've noticed, some of the missions are just way too specific. It's like, play with X Commander on tiers like between 5 and 6, and and deal damage. That's not specific. Dealing damage, everyone deals damage, right? But yeah, that commander and on that particular tier, maybe even with that particular unit type, that's kind of too specific, and most people will be like, oh, I just don't play that commander, or I don't play that unit, I don't like it, right? Make it more
Well, if you only play
generic.
archer, yeah.
Yes, I only play archers, and I'm fine with that, and give me missions that I can complete with archers, right? Just give generic missions like deal damage or cap 5 points. It'd still be harder with archers if you insist on going with archers. You can't really contest points, but maybe you'll encounter a game sooner or later where you are able to walk onto the point and get that reward. And speaking of rewards, from what I've noticed, they are mostly pretty bad and unrewarding. You get 4 missions, and I think 3 of them, all they gave me was silver. And like nobody needs silver, like unless you're Ashelto and you're imagining things. But other than that, everyone has a shit ton of silver lying around and nothing to do with them. So I guess that's kind of another issue, but that's an issue I would have anytime, because in wargaming, when you run out of silver all the time, unless you keep playing, premium ships, money, then you're fucked. And I, for example, had 2 tier 9 ships unlocked for 1 year. I've grinded them, I've played enough of the tier 8 ships, I've unlocked tier 9 ships, but I couldn't buy them because I didn't have enough silver, and I had to farm premium ships. And only after that I could have finally bought the ship that I've unlocked 1 year ago. So that's one issue, CA, that please do not fix. Leave it as it is. Nobody's complaining about it, except Ashelto, so we can even throw more silver away. For most of us, it won't make a difference, so it's completely fine. And about another thing of rewards, not dailies, but there was, and maybe still is, it's unclear right now because it's not really in UI anymore, but I've heard other people, namely Pardonum, claiming that it is definitely there. And what I'm talking about is the 30% bonus for unit diversity. And in most cases, like if a player sees that 30% bonus, he feels incentivized to bring 2 different units, right? And they'll be like, oh, I'm gonna play Germanicus and bring 2 units of infantry and 1 unit of javelins, right? And that's usually a bad idea, because that makes your units much harder to control, which most of the people will just not be able to deal with if they have more than 1 unit type. And it comes with another issue that, well, Germanicus and javelins cannot use a single ability. They can use charge because they introduced that change. So they can use charge. It's not like they're gonna use it for anything other than just dodging or moving faster around. But they cannot use the studio, they cannot use vengeance, and there will be much less useful that javelins under Caesar or javelins under Sulla, right? Or even fucking Scipio, who has access to Warcry. Shout out to my boy French boy, who loves his Scipio javs. So yeah, that's there are only few very specific setups that actually benefit from unit diversity, but they're incentivizing using that, going for that 30% bonus, especially 30%. It's pretty big, and they're incentivizing pretty hard. So if it isn't gone, I hope they will remove it, because in most cases it hurts the game rather than helps it. And people, who actually use that to their benefit, they're already getting that benefit of better synergy between their units or whatever they're trying to achieve with their build. So why give them another 30% benefit on top of that? Why make those players so much better and, so much more rewarded than players who just decide to play with 3 units of the same? It's not like their choice is any less valid or any worse. It's just a choice, and leave it at that, instead of clearly saying through a game mechanic, this choice is 30% better, except it is actually 30% worse in most cases, or even more. So yes, please don't do that, and if it is still there, please remove it. It's just stupid. But we are supposed to be positive, and something I am very positive about, but I will let Comrade Axel talk to you about it, is map pool. Go ahead, Axel.
Yeah, you're way more positive about this than I am, but
Hooray!
there's some positive things for the map pool that we currently have. They're more even, and they're better suited for the new game mode. There's no real one-sided maps. But honestly, we don't have enough right now to make the game succeed. They got rid of like a significant portion of the maps, and even some that a lot of people would have liked. I personally liked Marathon as a barbarian player, and so I mean, I would like to see them bring those maps back, maybe rework them instead of just getting completely rid of them and we adding just more new maps. But maps we have now are fine, but I'd like to see the old ones come back or new versions of them. And yeah. Take it away, Mistru.
Yes, from my perspective, as a competitive player and a tournament organizer, a map pool is something that, is pretty close to my heart, let's say. So when I was organizing a tournament and deciding on a map pool, so okay, this semi-final, it's going to be best of 5. So it means that it has to have for the first, it can have for the first 4 battles an asymmetric map, because you can get away with it, because in the end it will be fair, even if one side has clear advantage over the other. Like in my opinion, for example, one side is much better than the other on Marathon. So you can put Marathon as, as a map for battles 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 and get away with it, because after all, each team will get to play on the better side once, and each team will play on the worse side once, so it ends up being fair. But that also meant that whenever there was 3-0 or 3-1, and only in cases of 3-2, only in those cases you could finally play on a map that is symmetric, as maps should be. That meant that all the good maps were pushed back to the decisive matches, and all the bad maps, asymmetric maps, were actually being played in tournaments. So, you saw maps like, what was it? Marathon, maps like Hadrian's Wall, even Teutoburg Forest. Let's not start on that one. Terrible map. And yeah, you've seen those maps in tournaments in the forefront as, first maps of a match. And then all the good ones, like Gergovia, for example, one of my favorite maps, even though both cavalry and archers, which are my main units, are pretty much weaker compared to other maps, but I still love the design of that map. Just the fact that you have to go to the middle, fight for the middle instead of camping in your base, like in Teutoburg Forest, where camping is incentivized and pushing disincentivized. Gergovia, exactly the opposite. You have to fight for the middle. If you secure the middle, you secure an advantage for yourself. And then once you push the enemy further and further towards his base, you have a downhill all the time pretty much. And you keep that advantage, and the enemy doesn't have any or close to any advantages from retreating and camping. Great map design. Still some issues here and there, but overall, best map in the game, Gergovia. You heard it here. And those maps were pushed back. And what they did now is they decreased the map pool to 4 maps. It's, I imagine, most likely because of the new game mode, right? They need to figure out where to put the cap points and where to, put the healing points. And they have to do it in a fair way, right? Or at least they should do it in a fair way, and to be fair to them, they did. But that also meant that on maps like Marathon, you either put those in really bullshit places, very close to each other, or you have to rework the map. And hopefully they went with the rework the map, as you mentioned. Axel. So that's something that Conqueror's Blade does way better than Arena. When they see that map is even like slightly unbalanced, like there were people complaining about Algolia map in Siege, that the attackers are, kind of fucked here and here, and defenders are fucked here and here. They're like, okay, Algolia out of the map rotation, we'll rework it and put it in the game only once it's reworked. Arena has never done something like that. And I definitely think they should be doing something like that, and I think they are doing it right now. So, when people were complaining about Turtle Book Forest in the past, Turtle Book Forest was still in the game until it was not fixed, but improved. But what they should have done is just remove Turtle Book Forest from the game, rework it offline, and then put it back once it's fixed, so that people don't keep getting thrown into that shitty map. So, yes, CA, hear it out from me. Please make the map symmetric. Like every single map, please be symmetric. Not exactly symmetric so it looks shit. I know what you're going with. It's like, Romans versus barbarians on each side of the wall. So cool. But then again, one side has a high wall, the other side has a lower wall, and one side is clearly better than the other. Therefore it's asymmetric, and therefore it's a bad map design. So please fix that kind of stuff. You can still go with visual aesthetics. One map or one base can clearly look like a barbarian city or fort, and the other also, that fort was horrible. Yeah, holy shit. Just like in Germania. Please don't do that. But yeah, make one base look barbarian, make other base look Roman, buildings on each side Roman or barbarian, as long as they have the same hitbox roughly, it'll be fine. But don't do bullshit like Marathon with one side has the river, the other side has tall grass next to watchtower, while the other side is not next to watchtower. One watchtower gives big advantage, the other gives you fuck all. That's enough about the maps. Let's talk about something that has been improved according to George. What is it?
So I think the battle speed and the battle tempo and the length of the battles, I think that's definitely been an improvement with this new NetEase release. And obviously the big change that everyone will notice if they've played the game before is there's no battle time limit. The battle can not last forever because of the point system, but it can last significantly longer. And all the battles I've played, it has lasted significantly longer. And there are several reasons why I believe the battle has slowed down. So I think that one of the reasons why the battle slowed down is due to the capture points. So that the new objectives, because it's not just simply the one base, it really slows people down. Because, like I said, with the 1 minute 30 lock, if you get any kind of if you capture those sort of bases, it can slow you down. And also with the replenishment points, it can allow both teams to sort of re-establish where their units are, rather than being forced all the way back to the base. And the other thing is, obviously, the battle has slowed down because if you gain a points advantage with the new points victory, then you can sort of go into this defensive mindset and let the enemy come towards you rather than trying to push onto their base, because at the end of the day, that's still a legitimate way to win. And so that not all-out aggression can also lengthen the battle time. And I think that I think the benefit to having these battles slowed down and increased in length is simply there's more fighting, there's more action, and the game is just more engaging when there's things going on, right? I think maybe not for the competitive player. I think that it won't have changed as much, but for the sort of casual person trying to get into the game, I think it's a lot more accessible because, I've made this mistake. I know not to do that again, but I've got my unit back now, and now I can go into the fray again, and I can fight again. And so with that kind of attitude, you can not only let players learn and go back into the same sort of scenario very quickly, but you can also allow them to still be engaged by the game rather than having to wait for their commander to come out of battle or something like that. That you will always be in the battle until the very end. You can keep on playing the same commander over and over again. And so that kind of engaging gameplay, I think it won't necessarily carry over into the competitive scene because we will see a lot more, in my opinion, obviously the teamwork that goes into competitive gameplay. That will definitely change compared to how the game is played in sort of casual play. And obviously, as a final point for the battle speed and tempo, you do get some very, very nice kill and damage scores at the end of the game. I mean, you see people's average scores in wargaming. I think, what was it? A very good average kills was 300, something like 350, something like that.
Yes, you could start treating a player as a really good player if you had 300 plus.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now you see people in game. I mean, I was seeing some averages of 900. I even saw a couple people with averages over 1,000. And I mean, obviously comparing that to wargaming, you shouldn't compare it to wargaming because in that sense it's completely different. But it certainly looks better when you finish the game with these massive tallies.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, why the tempo or rather why the game battle length is longer. That definitely has to do with the fact that you have to kill each unit multiple times, or you get to kill them multiple times. You don't have to anymore, really. But yeah, you end up killing, as you said, on average. Like my average on wargaming was, no idea, I think 350 maybe. I'm just doing a blind guess. I might be very much off. But let's say 350, something around that. And I remember looking at one point, maybe day 2, maybe day 3, at my statistics in the NetEase release, and I had 1.3, I think almost 1.4k average kills. So if we take that, okay, my skill level is roughly the same as it was in wargaming, you can calculate that way that the amount of kills you do per game has increased pretty much 4 times. We can nicely say that it quadrupled, right? Such a nice, not English word. The other thing is, I think the tempo of the game will change with as we go higher and higher with tiers, because on higher tiers you have more ways to more efficiently kill one another with. So yeah, you can delete units way faster, your abilities are way powerful, and the game is much more punishing. So you would expect the games to be shorter, but on the other hand, you also expect players to be of higher level on average, and the differences in between teams in skill will no longer be as big as it can be on low tier, where you can just randomly get a bunch of noobs, and that will cause the team to collapse very quickly. So I would say the average length of battle will stay roughly the same as we progress through the tiers, but the tempo of the battle will increase. So you, instead of killing every unit 4 times instead of just once, on average, on low tiers, on high tiers maybe you'll get to kill 5 or 6. I don't know, hard to tell, because you need to just go in there and experience that to be able to tell, but that's a prediction. Let's say we'll get to predictions later. Another thing is that, yeah, I've analyzed the average time of the battle definitely has gone higher, since I just highlight battles from my streams. So I see like, oh, this battle took 5 minutes, this battle took 10 minutes, this battle took 25 minutes. And yes, there have been battles that went on to, I think the longest was about 25 minutes. I haven't done like exact measurement because I didn't really care about that. But yeah, there definitely have been some really long battles. And they're also exciting, so you can keep keep that excitement going for a long time, which is nice. So yeah, the average time has definitely gone up. Previously, you couldn't even get to 25 minutes because 15 minutes was the limit. And about that, previously Arena has followed like the wargaming model of battles, aka you spawn with your unit, warship, tank, plane, or whatever. Well, planes can actually respawn now, but whatever. Let's stay with tanks and ships. You go into a battle, you can die, you can jump quickly into another battle, right? And it has advertised itself, made an advertisement point about, hey, you can just jump in, play 1, 2, 3 battles. Each battle will take you like 8 minutes on average, maybe like 12, 15 minutes on average in World of Warships. And yeah, you'll have a good time. You can just die and then, leave quickly and that's it, right? So it's like very casual. You don't have much time during the day. Maybe you just got a break between doing something at home or whatever. Go and play one game, right? And it's like a counter argument of, for example, for League of Legends, where back in the day, at least when I played, the average battle length, match length, whatever you want to call it, was between 30 and 45 minutes. It was even, stated in the queue, like, okay, you are queuing for Summoner's Rift. It will take you between 30 and 45 minutes on average to complete a match. So you knew it was like a little bit of a time commitment, that you have to just sit there for 30 to 45 minutes and make sure that you won't be needed anywhere else. Like, I don't know, you don't have to walk your dog, or I don't know, pick your kids up from school in that time, right? And in here, I think actually Total Arena may have struck gold, because you have that premise of like League of Legends type of game, which is definitely more successful than World of Tanks and World of Warships, where you respawn and play for the entire duration, so you're constantly useful, blah blah. Versus World of Tanks, World of Warships, where once you die, you're out, and you can go into another battle, or just you can stop playing at that time. And where League of Legends might have the 30 to 45 minutes, and now I think after a certain patch, after a certain season, they made some changes that decreased the time to between 20 and 30 minutes, and that's pretty much around the time that Arena sits. So I think they can have, with what they have right now actually, the best of both worlds. So that's definitely great. And that is an advantage that NetEase version has over Wargaming version. But let's talk about the companies themselves. Take it away, Gunslinger.
Yeah. Basically, I just wanted to mostly talk about just the fact that we're with NetEase is probably a much better benefit than being with Wargaming. I don't really have any like solid evidence, but I think Wargaming has a vision of what they want their game to be, that they're a lot more willing to push onto their games, and I think Arena can really profit from a bit more experimentation in how it presents itself and the things it can do. And I think being associated not with Wargaming is a lot better thing for the game, just to bring people in, because Wargaming does not have the best name ever since pay to win really became a dirty word. And yeah.
Okay, so what I've heard, the NetEase's reputation is not necessarily the best, and actually can be a lot worse than Wargaming's. But then again, it's not a very well-known fact here over the West, and all you can get are some, rumors rather than, actually experiencing their games yourself. Like, you can play World of Warships and you can see all the premium battleship bullshit there is going on right there with Puerto Rico, for example. Rather, Puerto Rico. That was like the biggest fallout in World of Warships history, and that has only been recently. There have been multiple cases of pay to win, like with Belfast and many other ships. Let's not dive too deep into it, but yeah, Wargaming has done a lot of bullshit in their games, and that kind of bullshit have been like kind of crippling into Arena, while Wargaming was in the running of the publishing of the game. And NetEase also provides a lot better financial stability, and a lot bigger, just initial investment that they can put into the game, because they're just much more wealthy company. And what definitely lacked in the wargaming side was the advertisement. Advertisement of Arena has been handled very, very poorly, and that's why we didn't have a big influx of players, and the core player base wasn't big enough to keep the game running, so it collapsed. It has to have a good, healthy player base at the beginning through advertisement and stuff like that, to then carry it over. Something that Wargaming has done, actually. And they have been pretty good at the beginning. And once they got a solid player base with enough, commitment, there's a psychological term for it, like lost cost fallacy or something like that, sunken cost fallacy. So, once you've invested your time and probably money into World of Warships, I was like, oh, I've bought Belfast, right? That was pretty bullshit, but okay, I have Belfast. Oh, Puerto Rico. Oh, I don't know, Smolensk. Oh, I don't know, Kremlin, although there are actually available ships, but whatever. Some random pay-to-win bullshit. I just don't play World of Warships that much anymore, mainly because of those pay-to-win bullshit reasons as well. So yeah, but they know they can get away with that because their player base is solid enough. A lot of people have sunken enough time. They're not willing to give up on that game. And that's why they can get away with that sort of bullshit. And hopefully Arena will never do something like that. But NetEase can definitely provide, the investment in advertisement that is necessary. And looking at the other example I keep bringing up, Conqueror's Blade, which is published by NetEase as well in China. I don't know how exactly it is in China, but from what I've been talking with MyCom representatives during the events they've been organizing, also a pretty good idea. See, I should try it out one or two times. Actually, they are kind of doing it like that, but with very small amount of people behind closed doors. So please reconsider that. Anyway, so what MyCom has been doing, during one of the meetings between content creators and representatives of MyCom, they have said that when I ask a question why there are so many different versions of Conqueror's Blade, right? There's the Chinese version, there's like the Frontier version that is in Southeast Asia, and there's the MyCom version. And why certain things are getting published in all those different versions, well, differently and in different time frames, in different patches. Why do these guys have that feature for months and we still don't have it? Something like that. Anyway, the answer to that was that MyCom looks at every feature that they are introducing and makes sure that it is not pay to win, for example, and they don't want to introduce pay to win to their game. And to be fair, they didn't. There is no pay to win Conqueror's Blade. That I can say pretty much confidently. You can argue there's a little bit, but pretty much close to not at all. For example, mercenary units. I don't know how mercenary units. Wait, it's like mercenary and auxiliary units. Well, anyway, talking about those who you buy for silver, and you can also buy them for sovereigns, which is the premium currency. If they were only available for premium currency, you could argue they're pay to win, right? Because they may be a little bit stronger than their, regular tech tree equivalent. But even if they are better, well, you can just get them for silver. You have to grind at silver. It's not easy to get, but you can get there, and everyone has access to them and doesn't have to pay a single cent to get those units. So that's fine. But for example, it could have been available for sovereigns only in the Chinese version. And then MyCom looks at it, this thing is pay to win in China. Okay, let's request that once they bring that feature to our servers, tell them to add, the ability to buy them for silver. Could have been the case. I have no idea if it was, but it could have been. So hopefully we'll get something like that in the future as well. If there is some pay to win bullshit even in China, because Chinese audience a lot more okay with pay to win than the Western audience. So once we get Arena for the Western release, let's hope they will remove all the pay to win bullshit. And while the pay to win bullshit in China sustains the game for the entire world, we get to enjoy, a better game while, they get all the money from China. That's pretty much a perfect scenario. So yeah, I've been saying all of that. So let's talk about when Arena died back in the wargaming days. After it died, I've seen, well, maybe not a lot of articles, but a fair amount of them, and a lot of them actually pointed towards that battle scale feeling, that Arena couldn't provide that, feeling that the main Total War titles like Warhammer and Three Kingdoms and Rome 2 were providing, of epic scale battles. First of all, bullshit, because usually the battles are in regular Total Wars 20 versus 20 units. In Arena you have 30 versus 30, and they're the same size, although the maps are bigger, I guess. And battles in regular Total Wars are usually, I'm gonna put my infantry in the front, some cavalry on flanks, and then some archers in the middle protected by infantry, and then move forward, and my enemy will do the same, and we will see who's stronger. And that's basically it. I mean, they obviously have, advanced tactics in multiplayer and stuff like that, but for the most casual player, who's like those articles have definitely been written by, well, they probably also have that line of thinking in the regular Total War games, when they play their solo campaigns against AI. And the extent they can do is send the cavalry around and try to kill some archers. While surprising the AI, well, they're surprised how bad AI is. So, yeah, I kind of disagree with that point, but then again, the scale of the battle has improved since, well, they actually found, I think, perfect solution for that. Because you could increase the scale of the battle. You could have done like 15 versus 15, right? Or maybe players controlling 6 units. Like, I've seen a lot of that feedback around. Do it 15 versus 15, do it 6 units. We can handle 6. No, you can't. People have, like, the best players in the world have sometimes, struggled with controlling 3 units because of just how much more micro-intensive it is. Like, in the regular wars, they can just right-click, and that's it. Like, the unit will charge automatically, and there's no shield bash, no phalanx, no thrust, no vengeance, no stab, no nothing, no mount kick, nothing. You just right click and that's it. So you can obviously handle 20, 40 units, no problem. But in Arena, where every single unit has multiple abilities, you have commander abilities on top of that, and very dynamic battle situation, which you have to pay constant attention to. Yeah, so as I said, they found a perfect solution. They didn't increase the battle size, and if they did 15 versus 15, there will be problems with lags, for example, right? The battle at any one given time could feel too crowded. That would be the problem. Same with increasing the amount of units. The same problems pretty much, plus the problem of people not being able to handle that many units. And they found a perfect solution, just make them respawn. Sure. It has some downsides, maybe we won't have that nail-biting action down to the last man fights, it's like, oh, holy shit, who can win? Oh, like, we've seen those battles even on tournaments, and those were like extremely exciting. Like, you didn't know who is going to win until the very, last moments of the battle, where finally one side emerged victorious. Here we can still get it with points this time around, not units, because units will just infinitely respawn. But I had my first battle versus humans on the NetEase release was loss on my side, and we lost by 3 points. It was 3,497 points to 3,500 points. So literally 1 second here and there, walked onto a capture point a little bit faster, or don't get lagged, don't get disconnected, 1 time less, and you win instead of losing. So that was pretty exciting. Maybe a little bit for the wrong reasons, but still. So yeah, CA has found a perfect solution, pretty much, to that. They satisfy the casual players while maybe hurting the competitiveness a little bit, but overall, pretty positive change. And it shows that CA, when they put their mind to it, they can definitely come up with amazing ideas and good solutions, something that is very lacking in other games. So big kudos to them. So let's move on to the closing thoughts on that. What has been improved, what you really like about the game. Gunslinger, go fast, have at it.
Closing thoughts on what exactly?
Improvements to the game. What is like really
Oh.
positive thing about the game? Do you have anything to add to the topics we've discussed, or just?
Like I said, like everyone said, the new game mode is a big improvement. Just probably needs some tweaks, and it takes a lot of us to get used to what's going on and figure out our own meta. And yeah, we just gotta see how it pans out.
And you, George?
I mean, I think just at the end there, when you tied everything up with your, especially with the battle scale, I think you managed to tie in so many of the improvements into that, and especially when you talked about where they found that middle ground, where it's not too long and it's not too short, and you're in the battle the entire time. And I'd never thought of that personally, but I think that that's actually a really good point, and I can't stress that enough.
Thank you, and yes, great job, CA. Rainfire?
Yeah, I just want to say, pretty much I'm excited. Going forward, I like the new game mode. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's more fast paced. It's exciting. A lot of action. You can get a lot of points every round. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm looking forward to more factions, more maps, more units, more cosmetics. Possibly other new game modes. I like the fact that they're spicing it up, experimenting. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm ready to play some more.
And Axel, do you want to add anything apart from Echo from Rainfire?
I mean, I'm looking forward to testing more. That's what we're here for, is to test currently. We need to give them time and see where their improvements keep going. That's about it.
Yeah. So, well, I'm happy that everyone is overall happy with where the game is going. And speaking of where the game is going, let's make some predictions as we close down the podcast slowly. Finally, right? It's been going for quite a while, but for me it's great fun. So let's predictions for the future. George, what do you think will happen next?
Well, I mean, obviously, we've been looking for a very long time now at new factions to be added, because that's the natural progression. We see it with a lot of games that are similar or carry that same sort of line to Arena, like when you said especially in the wargaming, where you saw it took a path very similar to World of Tanks and World of Warships. They're always looking to add new nations in their case of their games. But now we're looking at new factions, and obviously we're really hoping that the stuff that was confirmed under Wargaming, because it's still CA's game, the stuff confirmed, like the Japanese faction, but we don't quite know when we're going to get that. But obviously now it's in China. We can look at a Chinese faction that will probably be very fleshed out. And I think that could possibly drag a lot of Chinese players, which could really help the game's survival chances by having that kind of Chinese base. And I could really see them fleshing that out. Obviously, there's a lot they can do with the China faction, lots of different units, lots of different commanders, just the nature of sort of Chinese history around that sort of technological time. Obviously, we're also looking for factions maybe just off the east of the European ones. We've got the barbarians and the Romans and the Greeks, but something like a Persia, which was hinted at definitely, and also maybe something like an Egypt. Obviously, something like Egypt plays quite a big role in like Rome 2, for example. And so they've definitely got that sort of base idea of units and things they could add to a faction like that. And also, a very long time ago, I think it's coming up for 5 years, they showed us a model for Spartacus, but we really haven't heard much on that. But if they continue down that line, they'd have to be quite creative with it. I think it's not an obvious choice of what faction they would join, or would they have their own faction. But certainly, if they can pull it off, I could see it being something really unique.
So yeah, Spartacus has been confirmed. Japanese faction has also been confirmed. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it will be quite unique, especially since Japanese haven't really used handheld shields. They just had shields attached to their arms, for example. and that's how they were using them, how their armor was designed. So that can have, a nice impact on the game. We kind of have foxes already, but those guys are pretty much naked. So we'll see how samurai go and how they will play out, and all the other types of units that we can get from them, and unique generals like my boy Oda Nobunaga. And yeah, Spartacus has also been confirmed / teased, and it will probably come sooner or later. Sula has been, for example, teased during one of like Steam version videos, like very old video that just briefly showed Sula. I was like, hey, how's he will look like? And then everyone managed to even forget about Sula, and suddenly Sula is in the game. Oh yeah, there was that one video. Yeah. So, maybe go back to some old videos and you'll see more leaks. And yeah, there was a very interesting discussion around Spartacus, since he's Thracian, and Thracia itself was kind of a mixture between Greek and barbarian culture, so he could be either Greek or barbarian. And again, he was captured by Romans, and that's where or was he captured by Greeks? I don't know. Anyway, he got his rebellion going on in Rome. Obviously, he fought Romans with his rebels and gladiators and stuff. So maybe he'll join Romans. They already have some gladiator units in there, or maybe they'll make another faction for him. Who knows? Although it would be kind of weird with how do you make a faction out of gladiators and rebels. I mean, they can do it. We'll see. Hopefully it won't be like a purely premium faction, which would be a solution, but then again it would be a terrible solution, which I already talked with developers 5 years ago. So there's that. And Chinese faction, I mean, the whole reason that deal with NetEase happened is because of successes of Free Kingdoms, and the initial deal with NetEase to publish Free Kingdoms in China. So yeah, Free Kingdoms have been a huge success in China. They love their own history, apparently. Free Kingdoms was the best-selling game, Total War game ever, although the retention of players has been quite terrible, actually. And, after a few months, Warhammer 2 overtook it again, as the players dropped out of Free Kingdoms. But whatever, Arena is a different case. Kind of what worries me, we can have something similar that Wargaming does, as in the Russian tanks and Russian ships are just absolutely the best. And well, okay, Russian tanks were actually pretty good, so there's also a reason for them to be pretty good in the game. But in World of Warships, also, there's this balance versus reality, obviously, right? So that's another argument. But anyway, in World of Warships, Russians has been sitting in a pretty good spot for a very long time, but now Wargaming is like, okay, let's introduce new battleship line. Let's give them the best armor, the fastest turret traverse, the biggest health pool, one of the best guns, great accuracy, great penetration. The downsides, they can only repair like 4 times a battle. Like, you usually repair that many times anyway. So yeah, that's the drawback. Yeah, sure. So yeah, they have the best battleship by far. There was even like a very good video by Flamu, my favorite World of Warships content creator, where he asks, what is the best battleship in World of Warships? And he goes over every single battleship in World of Warships before Russian battleships were introduced. It was okay, this ship has disadvantages and disadvantages, and he presented all of them, and he couldn't reach a clear conclusion which is the best. And it's like, well, it's up to you, depending on what you like. So it's kind of pretty good balance. And then Wargaming, Kremlin, the best battleship in the game. Thank you, goodbye, buy it. Right? I mean, you can grind it, or you can just spend some doubloons, convert some free XP, and get it immediately. So that you don't have to struggle for other, maybe a little bit worse ships, although they're all pretty good. Then I introduced Smolensk, clearly the best. What is it?
I don't know what the warships have to do with Arena right now.
I'm saying, let me finish the point. So they introduced Smolensk, and it's the best cruiser in the game. And what I'm afraid of is that since, Wargaming was a, not Russian company, right? And then they make Russians the best in their game. I'm afraid the same could happen in the arena, where since it's Chinese and Chinese release and only for Chinese, let's make the Chinese faction by far the best. So I hope that doesn't happen, and that's my point, and that's what the warships has to do with it. And a word of thanks, where Russians ships and tanks are way stronger than they should be, and just break the balance and make a lot of people not like the game because it's imbalanced, and just because of that. But hey, Russians, which is like a huge player base, get to enjoy their own national ships to be the strongest. So the player base is happy, right? Not really. So yeah. Also, about the new factions, you've mentioned Egypt, George. What I think is that, after they introduce some of the factions that have been confirmed, kind of, wink wink, they don't really go, or add Egypt, or add, they already added Carthage, and then add, I don't know, Macedon, which would be pretty much essentially the same as Greece. While Egypt would be a little bit unique, but yeah, they also had phalanx. They also would have elephants. They can have chariots, but chariots can come with other factions as well, like Chinese faction or some other faction, before they would release Egypt. And then you would, run into place, okay, we introduced Egypt, but it's essentially just a unique combination of other factions that are already in the game. So I think they should go outside of that and bringing like Aztecs, for example. Like Aztecs would be definitely very, very unique. And yeah, they're gonna just have fun with it, right? And you introduce something to the game and it's entirely new, right? And Egypt, well, I guess it's like mixture between Carthage and Greece. Okay, I guess. So yes, there's that. Gunslinger, what do you think what new will come to the game?
I think for the new features, new modes, we can look forward to. If anything, we might see the old mode in some other kind of fashion, either a different queue or in some kind of ranked queue. That would be cool. New game modes, they could do a lot of things with event modes or maybe some kind of weekly rotation of modes. I mean, there's not too much work that really needs to go into it, but if they really wanted to make it interesting, maybe it would probably take a bit more work. It depends on the kind of resources they would want to dump into it, but we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I've been thinking about in regards to new game modes is we got a new game mode now, and as evident of this with this podcast, that influenced the balance a lot. And they haven't really touched any unit balance itself. Like all the units are pretty much the same as they were on Wargaming, just a new game mode. And then we suddenly see, this unit is suddenly so much stronger and this unit is so much weaker in that game mode. So I'm thinking, if they will try to balance the units to fit the game mode rather than balance the game mode itself, we may see some game modes that will be completely unbalanced. Because let's imagine we have two game modes right now. We have the old one and the new one, right? And the old one would be pretty balanced, while the new one is imbalanced because ranged units are suddenly kind of shit, and cavalry and elephants are, kind of overpowered. I mean, elephants already were, but even more so in this new game mode, right? And then other balance, just inherent from the game mode, like stakes and the healing zones where you wouldn't respawn in the original version and you respawn here. So if they come up with a new game mode, doesn't matter what it is, new set of rules for the game, and how different units and commanders fit into that game mode, we can have balance all over the place again. And I will be looking forward how CA fixes that problem. What I think is, yes, balance the rules of the mode rather than trying to balance the units, because then once you introduce a new mode, with new set of rules, the units will be imbalanced again. So yeah, definitely balance it around the the rules of the battle, the game mode. So that's it from me on the topic. Rainfire, what's your prediction?
I predict. I've been asking and hoping and waiting for Persian faction since Steam. I mean, to me, it feels like a logical choice for another arena faction. So I'm gonna hold out hope that that is coming soon in the near future. That's my prediction.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've had horse archers back in the Greek faction, and then they thankfully removed them because they're absolutely broken. And the logical conclusion is that okay, if any horse archers are going to come back into the game, well, they'll probably come back to with the Persian faction, which is one of the most famous users of horse archers, especially in antiquity time, because later on we obviously had Mongols who were even more famous for doing so, for abusing the ever-loving shit out of that broken unit type. Well, yeah, it was obviously broken in real life, like Mongols conquered third of the world or something, I don't know, but it definitely conquered a lot through that. Persia as well, Hans brought down the Roman Empire, all horse archer uses, right? But there's game balance versus reality imbalance. You're just gonna abuse what's strongest, because why wouldn't you, right? But in the game, let's hope they will find a balance for it. But what do you think, Rainfire, about what direction will the game go in?
What direction? I mean, like I said earlier, I like the direction they've already started moving. I think the new game mode, it's faster paced, a little more exciting. There's a lot of action going on. It obviously has its issues and needs some balancing, but I like I say, I feel like I'm on board with the direction they're already moving, and I'm hoping it's more of the same.
Okay.
And
So
just
new game mode, new game modes is what you predict, and what is right up your alley. Okay, so Rainfire, can you turn off? Thank you. So if those new game modes, new factions, new everything comes out, it has to be tied to a specific date, more or less, which you can speculate. Axel, would you like to do it?
Yeah, I have some wild speculations here. I've come up with 3 different timelines for Arena and the possible. The first is the best option for us. The next test is going to come out mid-April, and it'll run, because they said it was going to run longer, it'll go till about May. And then after that, we'll have about from middle of May, end of May, through the summer, we'll have some more closed beta type stuff. Then open beta, October-ish time, and then Arena released in late 2021, I'd say. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, we test in April, they give us another test in May, and they shut down.
So that's pretty dark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, remember. And then here is the wild speculation version of this. April 2020, coronavirus spreads throughout the world, can't be stopped. May 2020, world goes into self-isolation completely. People become bored, start going crazy in their homes. NetEase and CA and Sega release Arena in open beta. In June to September, Arena makes a ton of money,
like that.
insane amounts. February 2021, Arena is fully released. The community is super happy, and Arena's back. May 2021, Arena Esports takes off, prize pools of $5 million. And then 2030, Arena is #1 game, the only game anybody plays. Coronavirus is still rampant. Nobody goes outside their house without a government permit, and just everybody plays Arena.
Yes, and SUNTZU holds the World Championship title for 10 seasons straight.
And that's my wild speculation.
Let's make it a reality. Maybe apart from the virus and people dying part. Yeah, so you've mentioned come back to the West, so let's speculate about that. I still believe it is going to happen as long as they do things right, and from what we've observed so far, when they want and put their minds to it, they can definitely do things right. They just don't necessarily always know what is the right thing to do, or just ignore some really glaring issues, which we have to keep pointing out to them if we also want the arena to succeed, right? In the end, it wouldn't hurt us as much as it would hurt CA. But going forward, NetEase, financial stability, way better than Wargaming. They also have learned their lessons. It's their third approach after all. And in terms of predictions of my release calendar, right? As I said, it's third approach. So they have a lot of stuff, already ready. They don't have to start figuring out every single thing from the bases. All the bases are already there. Now just polish the game. It shouldn't take too long to polish it to a really nice state. That could rival some other similar games. And also there's like not that much similar games that give you quite an experience like Arena. It's pretty much one of a kind game. So it doesn't have that much rival in other than just other free-to-play games, war games. It can definitely rival those, even right now. Just keep adding features. Just like World of Warships, kept adding features. You good campaigns, do campaigns for the whole arena. Ranked seasons. I don't know, in fucking stupid collections. Pretty much 90% of what Wargaming does right can be copied over to Arena 1-to-1. They can do that, and they can have a successful game like that while avoiding, the remaining 10% that ruin the Wargaming games as the pay-to-win bullshit and really, really bad faction balance where Russians are best at everything. Here in Arena, right now we have the issue of certain unit types being better than other unit types, rather than one faction being clearly better than the other. But anyway, balance will always be an issue, and let's just hope that they keep fixing it. Fix spikes, fix elephants, fix artillery, and we Gucci, right? And we Gucci to release in the West as well. All it needs is, get a nice, running start in China, get some stability in there, and then gets transported to the West, maybe in like less pay-to-win version if the Chinese version is pay-to-win. Let's hope not. It still makes good money. But whatever, we've talked about it quite extensively in the previous sections. So, time for some final thoughts. Rainfire, you go first this time around. Final thoughts for the entire podcast. Are you happy Arena is coming back to the West?
I'm ecstatic. I'm excited.
Even
as many times as this game has broken my heart, I still really love it. It's like right down my alley, and I'm excited.
Yeah, baby, don't hurt me no more. So what about the other baby puppy, Comrade Axel? Are you excited?
I mean, of course. I gave my information to the Chinese who might send it to their government and use it against me just to play this game, which might never come back out. I think everybody's super excited for it because we haven't had a game to play in a year and a half.
Yeah, well, that's something that, US can treat you as a spy or something. Speaking of another US citizens, Gunslinger, what is your take on it?
Excited for the incoming elephant meta?
Oh, yeah, I can definitely feel that. And what about our, British friend over there, George?
Well, I mean, who wouldn't be excited for it coming back, right? I'd love it to be amazingly successful, but even if it's not a massive game, even if it's still just those dedicated players, we had a great game, we had a great community until it got shut down twice. And third time lucky, here we go. Why not try it again? We're all here, we've all come back, so let's give it a shot like we gave the other chances.
Yeah, third time the charm, definitely. So, well, we could definitely still keep adding and adding and adding arguments about why Arena is amazing and what it should do, blah blah, but let's finish the podcast on that. Third time's the charm. And yeah, let's go. Let's wait for the April test. Let's see what that has to offer us. And yeah, what did I mention something at the end? Whatever. I wanted to tease something, but I'll tease you that I have something to tease, but won't tease it now. So
You're such a tease.
yes.
Just cut it off.
Yes. So thank you, Gunslinger, Rainfire, Comrade Axel, and George, for joining me for this quite a long podcast, but it has been so long because we all love Arena so much. And yeah, let's spread the love. Kappa Pride. Yeah, I know, right? Look at Barash. Arash. Is that close enough? Look at those close-ups. I'm such a professional YouTuber. Oh. Oof. Yes, close-up cinematics. Oh. Like, comment, subscribe. And I don't know, join, donate on Twitch, I don't know. Become my patron. So amazing.